Performance Management System. Chair. Thank you.
Yeah, Chair, if I may come in, I think probably the Chair might have been referring to the ICASA Performance Management System, which I believe is the next item where we will be engaging with the committee. The department has had some engagement, thorough engagement with the legal services, and there are responses in that respect that will be presented in the next item. On this one, Chair, I think as just to add to the statement, our view, Chair, is that the feasibility study was not necessary because we are talking about an entity that is currently in operation. It has been established some time ago. And what we are seeking to do, we are seeking to finalize its corporatization so that it can conclude the licensing process with the Prudential Authority. And so we are completing that process of separation from the post office to the fully fledged Postbank. So we basically, our view is that it's not really necessary for us to be able to do that. With respect to the other questions, I think they are all covered in the statement, Chair. And we'll be here to wait if there are any questions of clarity, if there are any points that honorable members would like to raise.
Okay, I will now allow members to raise points that they would want to raise at this point as it relates to the bill, the amendment bill. Right. For those members who can raise their hands on the platform, please indicate if I would have left your hand in that scope. Honorable Kumbu, followed by Honorable Kola Barnett, followed by Honorable Botlani, in that order, and I will take the other hands. The Honorable Kumbu, Honorable Lesiba, you'd follow. Honorable Mlala will follow after Honorable Botlani. Honorable Kumbu.
No, thank you, Chair. If you can just allow me not to switch on my video, Chair, because of connectivity challenges.
Please proceed. We can hear you.
Okay. Thank you, Chair, and good morning to everyone in the meeting. Chairperson, I fully support the input from the department, particularly that there is no need for a feasibility study as it is unprecedented for this kind of the bill, Chair. So, Chair, I would like to propose that the bill be taken to the next level of processing so that it can be finalized promptly, Chair. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Kumbu. Honorable Kola Barnett.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's a pity we didn't receive a copy of that presentation. I'm hoping we will still get that at some stage. And about the requested feasibility study. Now, the creation of a standalone bank offering full banking services absolutely different to the existing small savings bank. They are completely different. So to suggest they are the same thing is really, I can't accept that. We've been given no indication of whether or not this bank will be run from the post office premises, although it's completely separated from the post office somehow, or whether New buildings will have to be built. If so, where is the budget for that? Many of the post offices have been shut down. It looks like there may be more shut down. So there obviously is no premises in what are we up to, 130 or 40 or 50 post offices shut down. So there's no indication at all of any budget. There's nothing to base this on. So we're talking about an enormous financial entity which currently doesn't exist, piggybacking on an entity that has yet to have a clean audit. So there are issues that I believe such a study would have at least attempted to answer. So I absolutely disagree. I think we do definitely need this. We can't launch into something without all the facts on the table. It's just an impossibility. And we have no indication of whether or not the public in whatever areas, we don't know who will determine where branches of this bank will be. We don't know. And a study would show this. If the public will turn away from the established banks and suddenly decide to utilize this one for financial services. So where's the study? To suggest that a study is not needed, I think is wrong on every level. We're talking about taxpayers' money here. We need every I dotted, every T crossed. And considering that this bill is being handled by a committee with zero financial expertise, as opposed to the finance committee, we're still awaiting a joint sitting with them for further information. So I'm sorry, to move ahead with this bill is an absolute impossibility. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Kola Barnett. May I now proceed to Honorable Bolan? You are recognized. Unless the problem is on my side, I'm unable to hear you, Honorable Bolan. Honorable members, is it on my side? I couldn't hear.
I could see her, but I could not hear her.
I can't hear. Yes. So, Honorable Bolan, if you can try again.
Perhaps she's reconnecting, Chair.
Okay, she's indicating she'll type because her mic is open, but we can't hear. So, honorable members, you'd also keep an eye on the chat side for that question and the department. But at this point, I'll then move to the Honorable Malala and also check if there are any other members who would want to speak after Honorable Malala, so as to allow the department and the Deputy Minister to respond.
Hello, thanks, Chair. I don't know if I can come in now. Am I audible?
Yes, yeah, audible, Honorable Malala.
Yes, there's load shedding on my side. Let me first welcome the presentation by the department, Mr. Shilembe, and the Deputy Minister. I think, firstly, I also appreciate their insight into the whole process of a feasibility study. And from where I'm sitting, I think I fully agree with the sentiments of Honorable Gumbu that maybe we need to take the process forward, because Honorable Kola Barnett has not yet even read the submission. She said they must submit the document. Possibilities are that she's raising her views outside of what she has read from the presentation. But maybe let me make this 2 point clear, that the honorable members must remember that we are not establishing a new bank. This bank has been existing with whatever challenges it has, but it has been there. All we're doing is to make a separate entity that will have its own board, so that we can not mingle the challenges of post office and the bank, so that it can operate freely as a bank. Secondly, from where I'm sitting, the discussion in this meeting is not necessarily, I think we have had deliberations about the bank and SAPO and the separation. We had so many meetings about it. Where we are now, we are dealing with the bill. Now, so the issue of the feasibility study has got really nothing to do with the bill. We are passing the bill. All the stakeholders have supported the bill. We've been engaging about all these processes. Now, I don't think it's fair on the part of Honorable Kola Barnard to want to delay and stall this process because of an issue of a feasibility study. From where I'm sitting, we need to move with speed, because the public out there has confirmed the support for this bill. So it will be quite disappointing if Parliament itself has done a consultation to the public and the public has agreed, and then Parliament then start staggering and putting up excuses, waiting for the feasibility study and so on. So from where I'm sitting, let's move on. If Honorable Kola Barnard is unhappy, it's unfortunate, but I think we can't then sit and wait when everybody else, we have done all the consultations as Parliament, everybody else, there's no single entity that has rejected this bill. All these consultations have been positive. Now it's up to us as Parliament to ensure that indeed we move forward. So my proposal is that I would support that we move forward, and the political party concerned will have to find another way of debating in the House. But for now, I think it will be unfair for the public, because this is not just our views as a committee. It involves all the stakeholders. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Mlala. May I just check if there are other members who would want to speak, who have not spoken? I'm taking that honorable members do see what Honorable Bodlane would have posted. In case you don't see, let me read it. Chair, can we get a legal opinion on the view of the department? Which says a feasibility study is unnecessary. That's what I can read on my side. So that's the input from Honorable Bodlane. I hope she would be able to get sound at some point, because her mic is open still, but we can't hear her. So, but she agrees that that's correct. So we are also fortunate that we do have reps from the State Law Advisor, as well as the legal side is the legal side is also on call just to speak to this matter in case they want to speak to it now, but we'll still come back post the responses. Honorable Pambo, I see your mic is unmuted. I take it that you wanted to indicate that you want to speak.
No, Chair, I think, thank you very much, Chair. I think it's rather disingenuous for Mr. Malala to say that we are now dealing with the bill. We've been dealing with the bill, and part of dealing with the bill is to see and understand what is this that we are bringing into life, because this bill is giving creation to, whether we want to call it a new bank or not, but it is giving birth to a new creature which was not there before. And in this case, this bill creates a situation where the state almost has, a bank on its own. And that's why we're dealing with a bank controlling company here. We're talking about the control of this bank. Yes, we're establishing a board. It means it's a new bank. There was never a board in this nature. There was never a bank of this nature. And the colleague who's asking that, we need to understand the shape and size of this bank and understand what will it look like, what will it be able to achieve, what is the direction of this bank? What does, because we have it in this form. Yes, we understand that SAPO cannot be the controlling company anymore. And if we want to get this bank to be fully licensed, that is understandable in as far as the finances of SAPO are concerned. The reason why this bill is sitting in front of us is because there's no appetite, firstly, to build SAPO to be financially feasible, to be able to be a controlling company of this bank. So this bill then intervenes in shifting, control and making this bank stand on its own. But it's disingenuous to say that we have not been dealing with the bill. We've been dealing with the bill for the past few sessions. So that one is aside. But the reality of the matter is, there seems to still be a fog about what this creature we're trying to create through this bill, is going to look like. So when the colleague asks, is this bank going to be operating from SAPO's, premises? Given that SAPO is closing down branches, will this bank, and I add, for example, pay rent in these premises? Those are the things that we want to understand, and the modalities of it. And we need to fine tune it. We don't want to create a monster tomorrow that is not fully understood. But also the main thing here, and we still contend as the EFF, is that there is no need, if we can make SAPO financially viable. I know the horses, have bolted, but the reality is we still put it to you because we're still dealing with the bill. We haven't stopped dealing with the bill. We've been dealing with the bill. And so it's not something we're engaging, which is different. We're not at a stage where we're just passing, a law now. We're still deliberating on it. And if you put a position to say that, no, but we haven't been dealing with the bill, what have we been doing the past sessions, Mr. Molal? And without talking to you directly through you, Chair, is that is, I suppose, the sense that I get, that we have got this fog about what this creature is really going to look like. Thank you.
I note that Honorable Mlala wants to make a follow-up. Of course, after that, I would allow the department to respond and still allow members who have not spoken, who would want to speak, to still speak, or those that makes follow-up. Honorable Mlala, want to clarify yourself?
Yeah, Chair, I think I'm partly covered by Pambo, except for Honorable Pambo, except for one point that I agree that we have been discussing the bill. I'm not disputing the fact that we have been discussing, but I further say that in discussing the bill, we even went further and do consultation with stakeholders. So instead of us inculcating the stakeholders' views into the submission, we are starting a new discussion, which we should have long, I think, deliberated on. I mean, the issue of the separation, we have discussed it, I'm sure, more than 5 meetings. The issue of having a state bank, we've discussed that. At some point, the EFF was even promoting that we should have a state bank.
We still
Now,
are.
yes. Now, we are at a point where we have gathered information from the public. Instead of us consolidating that information, we are starting a new discussion. We want a new feasibility study. So I'm saying, where I'm sitting, that we are at a point where we're supposed to be consolidating what stakeholders are saying and then finalizing the process. But it looks like we are starting a new delay tactics, going back to say, no, we want to know how is the bank going to operate and so on. So I'm not necessarily saying we should not discuss that. All I'm saying is we are at a point where we're supposed to be consolidating what are these stakeholders saying. And from where I'm sitting, majority of them are actually pushing that we must speed up this process. Now, that's where I'm sitting, Chair. So I just wanted to clarify that. Thanks.
Honorable members, I would want to ask that we give the Deputy Minister and the department to respond the first round of questions. I do see a request also to try again from Honorable Podlani. Let's see if they would be able to make such a follow-up after those responses. I've also asked that on some of the matters that legal are responded to, if they are able to do that at this point after the department. Honorable the Deputy Minister, as you lower your hand, Honorable Mlala.
Thanks a lot, Chairperson, and thanks to the honorable members. Chair, maybe let's start with the issue of the requirement for feasibility study. Chair, legally, there is no such a requirement for the feasibility study for this amendment bill, as we have introduced it. This has been our engagement with the Chief State Law Advisor. Otherwise, if there was such a requirement as part of the lawmaking process, we would have complied with that. So there is no such a requirement. We welcome the suggestion that probably Parliamentary Legal Services can comment on that. We are confident that the Parliamentary Legal Services will come to the same conclusion as ours, that would like to clarify is the relationship between SAPO and the Postbank. Now, previously when the Postbank was established, that's when the separation took place. So as we speak now, the Postbank is not part of the South African Post Office, except that in the Act, there is a requirement where SAPO would nominate some members of the board. I think it's about 1 or 2. But there has been a complete separation, Chair, between the Postbank and the Post Office. Now, this bill finalizes the issues that the Prudential Authority was raising about the bank controlling company. And it clarifies as to how that controlling company should be established and the process that has to be followed in the appointment of the members of the bank controlling company. That's all what so in a way, you can say that some of the elements that we are seeking to introduce
are technical amendments to the original Postbank Act, which will fully comply with the requirement of it having a bank. So as we speak, Chair, we do have a bank, we do have a board, we do have management, the bank is functioning, but it does not fully comply with the requirements of the Prudential Authority. That's why we are bringing this amendment bill. So this is not a bill that seeks to establish an entity. The entity does exist, but what we are seeking to do is to amend some aspect of the legislation that governs this so that it can comply fully. It currently, as we speak, Chair, this bank is taking deposits. It's taking deposit, is functioning as a bank as we speak. So we don't seek to alter that one. But of course, I hear some of the issues raised by honorable members. I think some of the issues are of an operational nature. Where is the bank located? Is it still in the offices of the South African Post Office? Who is it paying their lease or all of that? I think that is more operational, which should not be a subject for legislation. It should be a decision best left to the bank to take. So we thought that we should clarify those points, Chairperson, so that we can be on the same understanding, Chairperson. But of course, we note some of the points that members are making. But I think Honorable Mulala is absolutely correct in his articulation here this morning. But of course, we will leave it to the committee chair to determine a way forward. But we do welcome that suggestion that probably legal services can do that. But from where we are sitting, we've complied with all the requirements of that are normally associated with an amendment bill of this nature. Thank you.
Are there specific questions that Mr. Shalembe, before I go to the other members? Mr. Shalembe, you think the Deputy Minister?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. If I may just come in, I think the DM has covered me by and large, but there's just a couple of questions that one needs to respond to. I think the DM is right in saying questions about where will this bank be located in terms of buildings and stuff like that, and the financial and enormous financial entity are indeed operational questions. But I suppose the committee is at liberty to call the Postbank to come and present its corporate plan, which will detail these things as to how it navigates itself in the context of some of the closure of the post office branches. So the Postbank is, as we have said, is in operation. It can be summoned to appear before the committee to present its strategy, and it will deal with all matters pertaining to the operational questions that have arisen here. I think what we also need to try and allay the fears of the committee for is that this perhaps is a bank or a controlling company that will require an injection of huge fiscal amount to get it off the ground. Chairperson, that will not be the case. As far as things stand now, the capital adequacy of the Postbank is sufficient for the Postbank to apply and obtain a license, which means it does not require an injection of capital from government to get it off the ground. So the fears that we will be utilizing the fiscus to get this off the ground at huge cost are not unfounded, Chairperson. The proposal for a legal opinion, I hear it, Chair, but I do not know what legal question we will be trying to answer here. I think there is a very technical tightrope that we have tried to walk in explaining that we are not establishing a new bank. The bank already exists. And therefore, if one were to do a feasibility study, it would be a feasibility study on an existing bank. And it would be, I don't know, trying to assess whether the existing bank is coping in the market or basically assessing the feasibility of its strategy. Because it already exists, it already operates, and it has branches within the post office, of course, and it continues to operate within the post office, even though it is being separated from the post office, but they remain joined from the hip in terms of the operational requirement, in the sense that it will continue to use the branches of the post office. But I don't want to preempt, Chair, the future strategy of the Postbank as to how it will grow and develop into a fully fledged bigger bank, whether it will still exclusively utilize the post office or it will branch out to some other forms of or platforms for the delivery of its services. That we leave to the Postbank to present to the department and minister as the strategy to be assessed. And that strategy will be presented to this committee. So, Chair, I think the point that we are creating a new bank is incorrect. We've been reiterating this point that it is not a new bank. The bank was created a long time ago. We are creating a bank controlling company in order to conclude the licensing process. If it wasn't for the fact that the post office is not in a position to be the bank controlling company, we will not be doing this bill. We will not be here at all. We will be just finalizing the licensing process with the post office being the bank controlling company. But as we now know, the post office is not in a position of being the bank controlling company, and therefore we have to create this bank controlling company. It is not a huge operation, as we have said, and it will not require funding from the fiscal to get it off the ground. Thank you very much, Chair.
As I said before, I get to members again who want to come in. May I just check from the legal that question that has been raised, either from representatives of State Law Advisor or our Parliament Legal. I think at this point, Ms. Tiloshini Kanjan should be with us now.
Good morning, Chairperson.
Yes, State Law Advisor Asfachen also, Van Asfachen also here.
Good morning, Chairperson. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Good morning to all. Good morning to all on the platform this morning. So just in terms of what is required and the request for a feasibility study, members will know that the bill seeks to amend existing legislation. The Postbank is not being established from scratch as a bank. It's existing, and as it exists, it's been relying on SAPO. And so what is required now is the complete removal, and the separation of the two. I'm of the view that there's no legal requirement for a feasibility study, and that we need to look at what we have before us in terms of submissions, and we need to process the amendment bill as in the ordinary course. Having said that, this process is the committee's process. However, I am in agreement with the DM and what has been said by the department with regards to where we are and the way forward. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. I just check from State Law Advisor if there's any comment at this point.
Thank you, Chairperson, and good morning to Chairperson and to all the honourable members. Chair, from our side, I was covered by the Parliamentary Legal Advisor. We also agree with the department that it's not necessary to refer the bill for a socio-economic study, feasibility study. So, Chair, I think although it is in the committee's hand to decide whether it should be done, there's no legal requirement as such for that necessary. Thank you, Chair.
Honorable members will then take a last round of questions. Of course, I'll prioritize those firstly members who would want to speak for the first time. I've seen Honorable Klego. Then I'll take those who are making a follow-up. I'm not sure if Honorable Bodlani, you had the first time to speak because we couldn't hear you. But I will also take the other members who would want to speak. And that will be like the last round and we'll roll on going forward. The Honorable Klego.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good morning to the meeting. I appreciate the fact that a presentation has been made to the committee. I apologize, Chair, I'm not on camera. I'm affected by load shedding, so I want to speak out of camera, if I may. Chair, going to what is discussed now, I think without mentioning the word feasibility study, the introduction of the amendment is the way of addressing challenges that were there affecting the institution. So I think, Chair, to mention the word feasibility study now, after the process has started, wouldn't be correct, Chair. It is good that some members are cautioning the department on the implementation, what they need to consider. That's good, Chair. But I think the progressive step would be to further process the bill. If the stakeholders did not mention what is recommended now, it will be good that we consider what has been recommended by stakeholders, not us as committee, where this bill was introduced. Now we come with a new approach to start with a feasibility study. I am then seconding the members that propose progress on the processing of the bill, Chairperson, taking into consideration the process that has been introduced by the department, the recommendations that have been made by the law gurus, that there is nothing that forces the committee to start with a feasibility study at this point in time. I propose progress on the implementation, Chair, seconding the other fellow committee members in the committee. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you. May I then try and see if Honorable Bodlani is able to.
Chairperson, I believe I am back on. I fixed my problems.
So I note you will then proceed. I note Honorable Kolabanat wants to make a follow-up. I will then note the two other members after that. Thank you.
Chairperson, thank you so much. Chairperson, let us separate issues. We understand where the process is. We have a post bank, we have the post office, and within the post office, the post bank was established. And now what we are trying to do is to make the Postbank a fully fledged bank with full banking licensing rights, with the minister or with a banking controlling company, the BCC. We really do appreciate that process. Chairperson, to borrow from COSATU and say, COSATU came into the portfolio committee and they supported the establishment of the Postbank. They cautioned, Chairperson, that they do not know where the money is going to come out to establish it as a fully licensed bank with full licensing rights and governed by the BCC. It is exactly what we are saying, Chairperson. And we do want unbanked South Africans to be banked. But to quote Honorable Bambo, it's the modalities, Chairperson, to say the implications where this money is going to come from, because it is all good and well to start new projects, to support new projects, and we end in a situation where they are a burden to the state. So the question we are asking, Chairperson, with the feasibility study, is there an appetite? Yes, we have had public submissions. But those public submissions, for example, with the banking regulator, they were saying it is proper. But the question we have is an issue of affordance, an issue of where are they going to be operating? Who is going to be their target market? Are people going to leave the banks that are currently in the system to come and join this bank in their numbers? Is this going to be sustainable? That is what we are asking. And what we are getting from the department is that in terms of the ecosystem of producing a bill, the bill has passed muster, and we appreciate that and we agree with that. What we are asking is the modalities on the establishment of the Postbank. Forget about the bill, forget about the processes that the bill needs to go through. We appreciate those. Those we have ticked the boxes on all of those. The question that is at hand that the feasibility study will seek to answer, is there an appetite? Is the bank going to be sustainable? Is it going to be self-sufficient as a matter of fact, where we have precedents, Chairperson, with how state-owned companies have been as burden to the state, as acknowledged as well by the Minister of Finance a few weeks ago in his speech. So, Chairperson, that is where we are at this point. We fully appreciate how far the process has come, and I am going to plead with the members of the committee to not want to rush this for its own sake. Let us be thorough so that all of us can walk away with the understanding of what this bank will look like, walk like, and sound like. Thank you, Chairperson.
As I said, I noted the Honorable Kola Barnett, who would be followed by Honorable Dr. Basop, Honorable Mlala, would then follow in that order. Honorable Kola Barnett, you are recognized.
Thank you. Yes, I thought it was an excellent solution that was suggested that we call the Postbank that exists now before the committee to give us an indication of what it would entail. Because as I say, to pass a bill without the financial implications behind it, it's just an impossibility. So if we find out from them, yes, they had offices in 50 of the post offices that were closed down. They can give an indication of where they will find premises for those 50 branches, etc. So to suggest there are no financial implications are simply wrong. And additionally, an enormous amount of financial expertise will be offered, which currently does not exist employee-wise. So extra staffing will be needed. So we need the details. We can't just pass something willy-nilly and say, oh no, it'll be fine. They'll sort it out in the future. With what finances? This country is in a state where bailouts are the order of the day. And because the post office is now not going to get a second, or I don't know, maybe third or fourth, I don't know how many they've had prior to the earlier one, bailouts, they're all bankrupt to the nth degree. We should also, be looking very carefully at the Postbank annual report and say, where are the failings? What needs attention, specifically by this committee, to make sure it pulls up its braces. So we have a lot of issues to look at still. I can't see us hustling this thing through in 2 weeks' time. It's just not a possibility. We need to do things cautiously and carefully. We are dealing with public money. It's not our personal money, and it's not the department's money. Certainly not. We need to do this properly or not rush it. I just cannot see us hustling something through if we don't know what the financial implications are. It's absolutely, it's an impossibility. It's not something I've done in 18 years in Parliament. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Kolabanas. Honorable Dr. Basso, please proceed.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson, and the honorable members and the people on the platform. Firstly, Chair, I can say I do sympathize and understand the concerns that are being raised by the honorable members in as far as the department ensuring us that indeed this project that we're busy discussing here at the end of the day will bear fruits and of course deliver to our people. And given the background and the challenges that we're faced with, especially with the sector that is concerned. But however, Chair, in support of the people who are saying, let's move. Firstly, as much as I am not a legal guru, but the little understanding that I have in as far as the project management is concerned, the feasibility study is only meant for a new project. And the understanding, this is not a new project, it's a continuation, but rather in the process to amend certain aspects in order to ensure that it delivers. All I can sponsor in this meeting is that perhaps the concerns that are being raised by the honorable members can be noted by the department and going forward taken on board in terms of ensuring that this project is viable, but rather not to install the process. That should be my proposal in this. And in a meeting situation, Chairperson, again, it's always the case that there is no way we behave as if we are in a church singing the same tune. But at the end of the day, different views are being noted because for me, they are serious, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the project can proceed. I'm therefore aligning myself with the members who are saying, let's proceed, but of course, we take note of these issues that are being raised so that we don't be seen as people who are not sensitive to issues. That would be my concrete proposal, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Dr. Basso. Honorable Mlala.
Yeah, thanks, Chairperson. I think I'm partly covered by Dr. Basso, except to raise two issues, Chair. That firstly, all these questions that are raised, I think have been responded to. I'll just cite an example. Mr. Shilembe, in his presentation, said that there's no need for us
Again, it's unless it's me, but I can't hear Honorable Mlala.
You can't hear him.
All of us, Chair.
Honorable Mlala, we can't hear you. Maybe try to get back again. Maybe leave, get back.
Chair.
And see if it improves. Honorable Bambo.
I think in the meantime, Chair, whilst Mr. Molala is still finding a connection, I think one needs to put this.
Honorable Pambo, were
Yes.
you indicating that you want to be recognized to speak?
My apologies.
Because I saw a hand of Honorable Kubega before.
Oh,
so
okay, that's fine.
I don't think it will be in any way for you to come in and that she gets back because I see her now. You can proceed in that score. You are recognized.
No, thank you very much for the indulgence. Yes. No, I think it must be recorded because Honorable Mulala raised that, of course, the EFF wants a state-owned bank, which will obviously circumvent or rather intervene in the bullying that we are seeing with the banks in South Africa and across, which are obviously discriminating against our people. That is the fact, and we want that, and we want a proper state-owned bank. But we do think that this bill, in its nature, is an intervention to the bank controlling company. We agree with, we consider and we agree with a lot of what has been said about the process. But we do think that we are embarking on this process precisely because SAPO is not financially viable. And perhaps if I can be indulged with, there needs to be perhaps a suggestion from or a collective decision that we could take, or rather the other option is that we could take a collective decision as this committee to ask that there be an appropriation of rescuing SAPO to make sure that SAPO is in a financially stable position, that it remains the controlling company. And that for me would then put this bill aside, because that's essentially what it does. The only thing that holds Postbank from being a fully fledged licensed bank is that SAPO in its nature cannot be a controlling company. And we are doing this process because we can't use SAPO as the controlling company. But other than that, in its current form, SAPO could be a controlling company, and we would still get the fully licensed, or rather we would still get Postbank to be a fully licensed bank. Now we are going in circles like this because, or we are seized with this bill precisely because SAPO is not, financially viable. So if we had, or if we approached the, Parliament as a committee to say that we propose an appropriation of resources from this budget to go to SAPO so that we can be able to rescue SAPO, I think that would essentially solve it, because you would still then have a controlling company that is feasible, or rather that is financially stable, to be able to get Postbank to have a full license as a fully fledged bank. Thank you very much, Chair.
Not sure if Honorable Mlala is back. Can you now be able to speak, Honorable Mlala, and be heard? You're muted. Honorable Mlala, you are muted. Please unmute. It seems Honorable Mlala is unable to hear us. Honorable Kubeka.
Thank you, Chair. Greetings to the Chair and the members who are present, and also the officials who are present here. Chair, mine on the side of contribution is to say, as the department have done its own task, and also you can hear from the side of the legal advisor, because they didn't just do on their own, they decided just to consult also. And if you can check, other civil societies have managed to support this bill. I would say I'm also in the view with these other members, as they are saying, let it continue. On the issue of the visibility study, we can't, as we are saying, this is not a new establishing a post bank. Or already the post bank, it was there, it was just a separation. But as we know that the post bank, in order to operate, it needs the relevant things like just the issue of the licensing. So we are saying, let the post bank continue being supported, and there is no need on the side of the visibility study. So I'm supporting these other members to say, let's continue with the issue of the bill also. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Kubeka. Honorable Mlala, because I want to give the department, if they want to respond quickly, and then I indicate the way forward. I've listened to the member.
Yeah, no, thanks, Chair. I think,
Honorable Mlala. Yes.
Thanks, Chair. I think there's general agreement from where I'm sitting that we move the bill forward and note some of the issues that are more administrative and to engage with the either the current board of the post bank or the new the newly established, because in any way whatever strategy they have will be presented to this committee. So I do appreciate what Honorable Pambo is raising, because it's more factual that if the post office was not in the current state, wouldn't be amending the bill, and I fully agree with him. And I think, Chair, without waste of time, can we then have a way forward? I propose that we move and note all the consent raised and move forward. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Mlala. I just check if there are matters that the department will want to respond to before I summarize the way forward.
Thank you, Chair. I think we are covered. In my view, the issues are the same, except perhaps for the last issue raised by Honorable Pambo, which talks about the committee lobbying for financial rescue or appropriation for SAFU. Chair, we have been on a long road with the National Treasury discussing how to turn around the post office and the necessary funding thereof. So if the committee is in a position to further exert its pressure, we would appreciate that, just for the post office sake, not necessarily because that needs to change the course that we are taking with regards to this bill. So, Chairperson, that is all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you.
Point of clarity. I lost Mr. Shelembe, Chair. I didn't hear his submission. Thanks.
Okay, Mr. Shelembe, would you want to repeat what you raised?
Chairperson, I was saying on the point raised with respect to lobbying for financial rescue or for appropriation for the post office. I think that is the prerogative of this committee to do so. We would also be thankful if the committee could secure some kind of funding for the post office. But we are saying that should not necessarily then stop this process that we are undertaking, because as things stand, the post office turnaround plan projects that their turnaround will be in effect in 3 years, where they will be in a position to make a profit. And this bill process should not wait for that long, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable members, maybe let me deal first with the point raised earlier on with regard to the Finance Committee. As I confirmed previously, both informal engagement with the chairperson, but secondly, officially, 2 emails sent in this regard to the committee. So we've done that part. And the understanding was it's an option that they would have, whether we have a joint or at least a report from them, from the Finance Committee, having also forwarded the amendment bill to them. So I just thought it's important that we understand it. It has been reported previously as such. I made a similar inquiry this morning when yesterday we couldn't get anything. So this morning I did the same to check administratively whether there's been any response in this regard, except that there's acknowledgement that that information has been forwarded by the committee support to the leadership of the committee. However, honorable members, like we said previously, in the main, this is the committee that the ATC has referred to with regard to this controlling company as the amendment in the main. It's about that. So at some point we would have to make the call, because in any way finance would make comments, but the ultimate recommendation is of this committee. So we'll still give them the opportunity to do so with an understanding that they themselves also have programs in place. And we know the process we're in, where everybody prepares for the BITRR. So we take that into consideration. As per our own program, we should be able to deal with this matter to its finality by the next meeting, where we deal with the bill itself on a page-by-page basis and be advised on the changes that needs to be made, especially taking into account what stakeholders would have raised, because that support was given, but there were also some proposals which the department itself surely would have considered in their response previously. So would look at those. But I just thought, honorable members, it's important as we summarize our way forward to make it clear that there's overwhelming support that we need the State Bank. And the Postbank becomes that State Bank once the government is controlled over it, as other members would have said already. But also there's appreciation that the reason we are discussing the matter, it's because as this committee have been presented before with how this would look like in terms of the infrastructure to be used. And in this case, we've understood the relationship between the Postbank and the post office, even under conditions of separation. Different boards that presented before us indicated the difficulty of that separation. But also another board at some point indicated an MOU that would be entered into between the post office and the Postbank at the time of talking to this separation issue. So in essence, it means Honorable Bambo and Honorable Mlala, it's correct that we need to look at the intervention in SAPO. But that intervention is not really linked to the legislation issue that we're dealing with. Because if it is on the basis of that, I think we can lose an opportunity to make a correct intervention. And for that reason, I want us to separate the two. That yes, we're dealing with a legislative matter, but we do understand that from previous presentations, we need a functional post office from which the Postbank will continue to operate. And if that happens, it means bringing banking services closer to where the people are. So in this regard, I would want the committee, I'm sure that's what you were saying, is that as we get to the next level to look at the bill, we equally are saying this committee must now officially write to the finance and appropriations as it relates to the intervention on the post office. Because that intervention, we may not have luxury of time on it. Just to remind you a bit, the reason we postponed discussion on the turnaround strategy of the post office to be after the midterm budget policy statement was because what was presented before the committee was a hope out of engagements, both in cabinet and with treasury, that a possibility existed and there would be an announcement. And we now know that there's no such an announcement, but it doesn't mean the crisis is over. In fact, it is deepening. And I want to get yourselves to understand, that's how I understand you to be saying, is that post our meeting, we are able to write to both finance and appropriations as it relates to the post office. And it is in that motivation that we should be able to demonstrate that whilst there is a noble intention to get a state bank, which must operate on the basis of the infrastructure that already exists in the post office, for which in any way, it is the infrastructure that SAPO invested on over years. Hence, they've been complaining that they've not been compensation as the separation occurs. That it will defeat the same objective of government to have such with a post office that's crumbling. But that does not mean the bill would not be able to be processed, because in any way, unless legal would advise differently, even the separation was not a matter of approving the bill today and tomorrow. It's effective. There had to be certain things that get done, and the implementation period would have then been deferred to 2010 from where it started in terms of engagement. And therefore, from 2010, we went to 2019, the effectiveness of that decision. So with the amendment on the Postbank. But as I said, the problem we have is that the crisis of the post office may not wait for even such. Even if you say you defer, doesn't resolve the problem. In the same vein, if we're to look at the turnaround strategy presented to this committee, and I'm repeating this committee because we process reports that come before us. In that turnaround strategy, we know that you would probably see break even and profitability probably 3 years from now. But of course, when there are such interventions that get made, so that we don't think that intervention will ultimately make the post office fine tomorrow if it comes, for one simple reason, that you pay first, there's historical debt that must be serviced. And you also need to invest money to make sure the turnaround strategy does pay dividends at the end. So that can be a process of its own. So it's important that we have an understanding of that separation so that we do not miss an opportunity, at least from a committee point of view, to make an intervention as far as SAPO is concerned. And I think as it builds up, surely government may want to review its decision in future if it needs to do that. But for now, I think let's make that separation. That the legislation in any way for some of the operational matters that get raised in its nature would not get to such detail except to give a framework. And what we're dealing with is a framework of a controlling company. And that's what we'll have to deal with. There's also a suggestion, which the department also accepted, that we may need to look at getting the Postbank to speak to its corporate plan, which I take it that it should also be in the same opportunity we would have when we deal with the annual report of the Postbank. And they will be able to say what their corporate plan is in that regard, which also demonstrate once again that it is operating as a separate entity. Hence it will also give its own annual report, for which SAPO was one we've already considered, which excluded the Postbank. So I thought it's important because these have come before the committee, and we should help each other in cases where we forget what comes before us, to remind ourselves of that. But like I said, in the midst of all this, as other members would have captured it, we would not be discussing if SAPO was in good shape, a controlling company other than SAPO. But the reality is that the time would not permit to say it will be in order tomorrow. But again, if we don't intervene in SAPO, like we said previously, and this is a point COSATU also made, is that it may not be operational in a few months. And if that happens, I think the risk, though, is that it may be one of those entities that go private. And I think as representatives of the people, it would be a betrayal of the masses of our people if that was to happen, when we know this is the entry point of service in most of those areas that have been marginalized before. So that's that's what we are to look at, honorable members. So let's make that separation, and that we make that intervention if the meeting so agrees, so that it's now not just a proposal, but a concrete resolution of the committee, that we are now approaching it from an appropriations point, understanding that appropriation necessarily is done by Parliament. And we need to participate actively in that. And I'm sure you would also take the resolution of the committee we took before of going to your caucuses as different political parties lobby for this resolution, so that it's easier to have an engagement with both finance and appropriations, even if it means them opting to have a joint session with the committee. Surely we should be amenable to that in an endeavor to help SAPO in that regard. So I think all other matters legally at what stage you are in have now been clarified. There's not been an intention to rush the bill. I think such may not be honestly reflecting to the situation. We had cut-off dates. We were flexible on those because we understood the need not to rush without taking the public on board. Even at the time when the public was not responding, this committee said, let's still create the time, use all avenues to put pressure in whatever way, mobilize that civil society as a way of coming before this committee. And I must say, thank the committee that they took that approach, because we now are making a reference to presentations or submissions made by civil society structures that came before the committee. And I'm still confident that if we can all do the same in mobilizing, that SAPO is saved from what could be a catastrophe from a point of service delivery, and not just only the workers that gets affected, but the service that they give to the people in those points. So if we can, I think, take it in that way, then it will be understood why there may be concerns about the Postbank, its success and so on, as it builds on that infrastructure that SAPO invested on for years. So that's how we are going to move forward on this issue. We'll then, as I said in our next session, this is the part we'll deal with the bill as indicated, having legal people also full-time in the meeting, whilst we address these matters that we are addressing. That's the way forward, honorable members. Honorable Kolabanat, are you calling an order?
I just wanted to know, you say you want to go on to sort of line by line in the next meeting, but there's a proposal which was made by the department that the Postbank heads be called before the committee to talk about what will be needed should this amendment go through. And also we've not had the feedback from the finance committee. Are you suggesting that those things should come after the processing of the bill? Surely not. Please just perhaps I'm confused. Thank you.
I take it to be indeed the confusion you may have, Honorable Kolabanat. I've covered the points that you've raised, but maybe to clear it, like I said, there's overwhelming support that we work on the basis of the amendment to the bill. However, there are matters that emanate from that. Let me then speak specifically to the Postbank coming before the committee. I've indicated that the department itself has agreed that they come and present the corporate plan. But I said, let's probably also join it with their annual report, which you should be having by now. If not, I'll just check from the committee side of things, right? So that would happen. So we'll make arrangements with the department. But that's about operational matters. The legislation does not get to that detail. That's the point I was making. So we'll still call them, and then we'll still have to do the bill on a page-by-page basis. This can happen in the same meeting. It may be separate meetings that we call with the Postbank. So it's a matter I would have to work on from a program point of view, right? So I'm saying this taking into account that Parliament also has got its program. So we'll come back on that. So there's no confusion from where I'm sitting, neither ignoring what the department has said should happen. Second point was that the reason for us not to do that page by page now, it's also to afford finance an opportunity again to respond in whatever response they would give us, whether it is about us meeting or it is about them commenting on the bill as it relates to the structure, because we're dealing with structure at this point. So that we take that into account as we deal with that point by point in that regard. For me, that's the part about hurry but slowly, is that with the overwhelming support now, we could proceed to the next level in this meeting. But because we are considerate of use, that's why I take it to our next meeting so that we allow space, we may get some of these inputs. However, more importantly, in the point I've made, Honorable Kolabanat, it's an understanding that from an ATC point of view, we are the committee that must make the recommendation, not the finance. The ATC would have clarified it if it needed to be like that. So it is not the case at this point, but we are doing these consultations in order to enrich our understanding of matters we must deal with. And that's why when the committee made that call, letters in that score were also issued out over and above, even informal engagement on the intent of the committee to engage the matter with finance. So that's the way forward, really. But like I said, there's a way forward we must also indicate that's agreed. It's an understanding that the post office needs intervention. And there was a proposal in that regard, and I've put that also in the way forward. So that's the way forward, honorable members. It's unless you are pushing that, probably because there is an agreement at this point that we can also deal with the page by page now, if you meant by the next level to mean that. But I just thought we can still use the time in between the meetings to get whatever other comments we can get. But that meeting should then look at deliberating and making proper recommendations to the House. So that's how I'm approaching it from the summary side of things. I'm sure the department you would have heard, so that after the meeting we can also look at this part about corporate plan of the Postbank and its and the feasibility of them, briefing the committee, of course, also on the annual plans, on the annual report, as it has been pending. With that having been said, honorable members, I would want us to then move to the next item of the department, which relates to the ICASA department. Mr. Shalembe.
Thank you, Chairperson. I was just checking if perhaps my ADG or the DM are on the platform for some introductory remarks. I see they might be held somewhere else. So thank you very much for the opportunity. Chairperson, we have presented the ICASA Performance Management System, I think on several occasions now to this committee. We have again submitted the full presentation on the PMS for ICASA, but for the purposes of today, I'm just checking, Chairperson, if I present again the full presentation, or do I focus on the legal matters that were raised by the parliamentary legal advisor, which we have since resolved through negotiation and discussion? I will need your guidance.
Yes, please focus on those matters that you needed to respond to as raised by legal. Otherwise, we have gone through the presentation before, and there were those matters raised. And I think after that, the committee will be ready to look at its own report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I'm sharing my screen. I hope it is visible.
It is, even though it's not on presentation mode, but we can see you and see the presentation.
Now it's on presentation mode.
Yes, that's even better. Thank you. You can proceed.
Chair, there were several issues that the legal advisor raised, which we have interacted on. The first one, which was on item 1.1.5, related to what the legal advisor commented and said, the PMS must be outlined with precision on 1.1.5 on exactly what is the envisaged outcome when the National Assembly considers the evaluation panel's report of performance assessment for all the ICASA councillors. This is with respect to a provision which says after the evaluation panel assessment, it will submit its report for consideration by National Assembly. And therefore, the legal advisors are asking, what kind of consideration do you have in mind? We have then amended somewhat the PMS to say consideration to be done in line with Section 4 of the ICASA Act. The ICASA, Section 4 of the ICASA Act deals with the functions of the council and the councillor. And therefore, the evaluation panel's report needs to assess the extent to which ICASA council and councillors have performed their functions as enunciated in Section 4. There are also other clauses in the PMS in 4.3 and 4.4, whereby we are saying part of the reasons for the consideration will be in the event that there is some performance improvement required, the National Assembly would make those directives to the council, which will be communicated through the minister. Also, the other considerations relate to the retention of skills in the council, the payment of incentives, as well as the eligibility of or non-eligibility of council members for appointment or reappointment into council. So that is the kind of consideration, and having made those kind of adaptations to the PMS, we agreed then with the legal advisor that then takes into account their head concern. The next concern was with reference to 6.3, where it was said that reference must be made in the PMS to all possible grounds of removal, instead of one found under Section 8.1G, which is restricted to refusal to the signing of the performance agreement. We had in the PMS provided only the ground in 8.1G, which as the basis for removal from council, because we thought this is the PMS and not another document that is the other ground. But with the advice of the legal advisor, we thought it does no harm as well if we leave all of Section 8.1 as the ground for removal into the PMS without specifically focusing on 8.1G. The next one was on item 9.6, which is saying we need to have an inclusion of both oral and written submission, which might be useful for the preparation of councillors as well as the National Assembly. We had to explain here to the legal advisor that the whole process involves the submission of written documents, way up from the councillors self-assessing themselves, right up to submission of such assessments to the evaluation panel. We are then including the possibility of oral submissions by councillors in the event that that is necessary. Not to say we are only calling for explicitly oral submission. So we agreed then to retain the clause as it is in current form. And as written submissions will be part of the report submitted by the evaluation panel. With respect to 10.2, it was said that it is of crucial note again that Section 6 capital A4 does not guide the duration of the constituted evaluation panel. We acceded here, Chairperson, that indeed the law, which is the ICASA Act, does not provide for the duration of the life of the evaluation panel. But we then thought we would cure that by including a provision in the PMS itself, which says members of the panel will be appointed or reappointed for a term of 3 years. That means then that each evaluation panel will be appointed for 10 years, and those members may be reappointed for another term of 3 years. And then we will then appoint new members afterwards. We then agreed with that, but the feeling was that perhaps in the long run, the term of the evaluation panel needs to be included in the legislation itself through an amendment. With respect to item 12, which deals with the remuneration of the evaluation panel, we had in the PMS a provision which says remuneration shall be determined by the minister with the concurrence of the National Assembly. However, the legal advisor was of the view that we need to limit this to the executive and then have the remuneration of the evaluation panel being determined by the minister with the concurrence of the Minister of Finance instead of the National Assembly. We did not have an objection to that, and as a result, we have revised the PMS accordingly. With respect to 13.1, which deals with the intended financial year period to be expressed to avoid ambiguity and confusion. In the PMS itself, we have something that says performance shall be assessed in each and every financial year. And the view was we should include in the PMS the financial year in question. Our view, though, was we cannot do that in the PMS document, even though the attachments to the PMS document, which is the KPI document and the annual performance plan, will have the year in which they are applicable. But we do not need to include that in the PMS. And we also noted that we will retain 13.1 in its current form, as ICASA's financial year is linked to government period ending 31 March of each calendar year. With respect to 13.7, there was a view that the National Assembly be furnished with quarterly reports on the performance of all councillors and the ICASA Council. Our response here was we have already provided for in the PMS that the reports will be biannually, and therefore we thought that quarterly reports would be perhaps too cumbersome for an evaluation panel to roll out each quarter. And since the law in any event provides that these reports be done at least annually, so which means at least once a year, and we are providing that these be done twice a year. The legal advisor then did not have a problem there, but said we should communicate this to the committee as we do so now. With respect to item number 14, which has to do with the review power to regulate dispute resolution, is currently conferred on the National Assembly. It is suggested that the process must be undertaken through the minister, who will then submit to the National Assembly in line with the process of appointment and the existing rules of parliament. We have then agreed to retain this provision as read in line with section 3.3 and 3.4, read with section 5 of the ICASA Act. The ICASA Act, section 5 of the ICASA Act deals with the appointment of councillors into council. So the provision as it stands now is saying that should a member of council be unhappy or have a dispute with the assessment of the evaluation panel, he or she may lodge his or her written dispute to the National Assembly for consideration. And the view is that this will be submitted through the minister, who will then submit it to the National Assembly. And then finally, with respect to 15.3b, this one relates to the giving of the views of the National Assembly after it has received the evaluation panel's report. And the view of the legal advisor was that giving of such views by the National Assembly to the evaluation panel may be redundant, as the panel may be, a Latin word, the functus officio, at the time such views are given. The feeling is that if their task ends once the assessment and evaluation report is done. We have included the part which says the views shall be given not only to the evaluation panel, but to the minister, the evaluation panel, the council, and the councillors. Our view is that even if the term of one evaluation panel were to end, but there shall be another evaluation panel in succession to the prior one, and therefore such views will be carried forward by that concurrent evaluation panel. With those words, Chairperson, I think that's the end of the input. By and large, we have agreed with the legal advisor on all the issues raised, and she was also amenable to cases where we were responding and explaining some instances why we had phrased things the way we did. Maybe as I conclude, I need to add that in as much as we shared the legal opinion with ICASA, we have not been able to get feedback from ICASA, as this all happened quickly last week, whilst ICASA was inducting its councillor, but also running with the 7th Sub-Saharan Spectrum Conference. So ICASA have looked at this. I hear that the chairperson has looked at these comments from the legal advisor. They feel that they do not materially change the PMS as they had agreed to it, but they will still need to share it with the rest of council, just so that everybody is involved. With those words, Chairperson, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Shilembe. I'll just check if there are members who would want to get any clarities before we get the content advisor to actually present our committee report in this regard. Might just check if Mr. Malika or Dr. Mitubi would want to then speak to the committee side.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning to the members as well. I thought Mr. Malika, between myself and Mr. Malika, I thought Mr. Malika would come through and do a brief, under a brief submission on the report that we've put together, to adopt the report as such, and I'll just support him as we go along. Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Malika.
Good morning, Honorable Chair and honorable members. If I may have Ms. Sally to write the draft report. While she's doing that, Chair, I'd like to indicate to the members that we did also consult with the Office of the ISD, which is the Institute Supporting Democracy in the Office of the Speaker. As we had indicated, Chair, that we wanted to ensure that there's appropriate concurrence across all the board. And this is a process that they usually embark on with all the institutes that support democracy. And it was unfortunate that there was no template for a report of such, because I think it is as I was told, the first time that so in that score, Chairperson, we then went with the standard de facto templates that we use to compile reports that are to be adopted at National Assembly. And the report was circulated, I believe, to all the members. I don't know if the chairperson would like me to read word by word, or should I allow one of the secretaries to do that?
Not necessarily, because the report has been circulated. I think members would then indicate, having also listened to the presentation made by the department in response to matters that were raised. Otherwise, there was no problem with the PMS.
Thank you, Chair. The last thing I meant to add, that the Office of the Speaker did indicate that they don't necessarily have to have an input into the process, so long as we did our concurrence with the legal services. And that's it from my side, Chair. I don't know if Dr. Midi to add.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Mr. Malik. I fully concur with the submissions. Thank you very much, Chair.
Honorable members, that's the report. Any matters that you would want looked at in the report, or in the absence of that, at least get a mover and seconder for us to be able to communicate back our consent to the department, and that they can be implemented.
I move, Chair.
Honorable Mlala moves. Can I get a seconder?
I second, Chair.
Oh, Chairperson, I had my hand up, and I
did not say it, Honorable Bodlani. So you wanted to speak before the adoption? Okay, Honorable Bodlani.
Chairperson, I think one thing to note is that this is quite a historic item. And I think the onus now lies on this committee to really give it life. And in that regard, I'm more than happy to support, but I think we should be deliberate in terms of giving this item life, making sure that there is some sort of appraisal of people who are working on behalf of the country. And I support the report, Chairperson.
So Honorable Bodlani agrees with Honorable Mlala and Honorable Kumbo. Any objection? As adopting the report? No objection, the report then is agreed to.
Noted, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. To item 3, is that Mr. Malinka, or is it Dr. Midubi from the content side?
Good morning, Chair. Good morning again to the members. That's myself, Chair. Suffice to indicate, Chair, that a recommended and a draft program has been put together for the 2 vacant positions on the MDDA and ICASA. And Ms. Portia Tabene has shared the draft program accordingly. So this morning would recommend that, Chair, that the program be formally considered and adopted, and the subcommittee be appointed accordingly as well. I'm not too sure if you would want us to flight the draft program, Chair.
Necessarily not, because that's a matter of subcommittees. I think the point really is to get the parties to confirm whether there are no changes on the subcommittees we established along the entities where we need to make appointments.
Point of order, Chairperson.
Yes,
Just
Honorable
to say
Bodlani.
that I don't remember seeing the draft program. So just for clarity that I have not seen it, I don't think it was circulated to the committee.
Yes, Honorable Bodlani, I would really forgive you because you had problems with connectivity. I was addressing that point, that necessarily it's about parties confirming subcommittee members, because a program for a subcommittee would have to be approved in the subcommittee. But like I said, at least you understand that point. So it should therefore be circulated to members of such a subcommittee and apply their minds before the first meeting of that subcommittee. May I get an indication, therefore, whether parties intend changing members so that there's communication after this meeting to those members that sit in those subcommittees, or the situation remains the same in terms of membership to those subcommittees? I think that's what we need to get. Can we then confirm if things stay the same, honorable members, for the MDDA subcommittee and the ICASA? Okay, it's agreed. Yes, honorable.
No, Chair. No, Chair. I think I was in the ICASA committee now. It has been changed. I'm in MDDA. Something is not right. Can we just amend that?
Okay. Honorable Mlala.
Yes. Gumbu was the one who was in MDDA.
MDDA, yes.
Yes, I was in ICASA. So just swap the names.
Yeah. So that correction will then be made. Otherwise, for other parties, no changes. With that having been agreed, at least the administration will then communicate with the relevant members of the subcommittee to calculate the program and also work on indication of the first meetings. Okay. So that having been agreed, we can then get to the next item. Ajira.
Yes, Chairperson. The next item is the minutes, Chair. I'm just going to share it now. Thank you. Chairperson.
Then just scroll, members will indicate whether they need correction. Members, if there are no corrections, of course, except for a correction on, I think that should be Bavuma surname, not Bivuma. Yeah, it's unless I didn't see it correctly. I'm saying on names of people, there's a name Bivuma there, I will suspect it to be Bavuma or Bavuma. I have.
I think it is spelled Vuma, Chairperson, without an A.
Oh, it's like that.
It's spelled like that, yes.
That's why I was saying, unless I'm incorrect, never heard of that setting. Then that's correct. Can we get the mover and seconder?
Chairperson, I move that the report be adopted.
The minutes move for adoption. Seconder.
I second, Chair.
Honorable Kubeka seconds. Are there any objections in us adopting minutes as true reflection? No, then the minutes are agreed to. Honorable members, as we get to the closure, we do this update all the time. I've, in the meantime, been trying to make that we are still short of 4 people to be vetted. And from the SSA side, from the report we have, is that their part is more delayed from the point of subs, from a fingerprints point of view, the report that comes from that side. They were to make follow-ups again in the course of today. So we are in short of 4 candidates, and which is something we thought it's important that you consider all candidates on a similar basis, that they've all been vetted. Hope once again that they should be able to complete that task. In the 6 that remained, you'd remember, we had 6 at the time reported, but the report we got now was 2 instead of the whole 6. And they said I'm making a follow-up on the 4 with subs today. So once we have that, as agreed by the committee, we would be calling a special session of the committee if it's outside of our slot. But just to say that from the committee side, we have kept the public informed of where things are. And that at some point we also get inquiries, and our response has been the same. We do it not because we want to be engaged in a public spat with the SSA or any other department responsible, but more to clarify that in the work of the committee, we did what we could, but we have to be patient in getting this report, and from that report, we should be able to conclude our part of the recommendations. So when we convene, who will be making recommendations on the names and motivation. So let's just hope that SAPS and SSA to come back to us now on the 4 remaining candidates. And that report on the vetting gets to be important on the people that were recommending to sit in these boards. And this now is backed by the recent decision of Cabinet as they look at strengthening that work in people that get into such boards, of course, including extra expectations into the future. But I think from where we are, that's where things are, honorable members. So we're only trying to push as much as we can, but we have dependencies which are not really in our total control. That's where we are. So we really hope we can conclude this matter. It's long overdue. And then I'm sure South Africans understand that it's beyond really members of this committee, but we are dependent elsewhere. Thank you. That's where we are. So would brief you, if indeed we're to get the names today, you will see it even in our platform of the portfolio committee that we are ready to go, and that members must just prepare to make proper recommendations for candidates that are fit and proper to lead the SABC, learning from the past. Thank you, honorable members. With that having been said, of course, Ajira, is there any other item I've left?
No other item, Chairperson.
With no other items, honorable members, this concludes the business of the committee for today. See you in the house. The meeting stays adjourned. Thank you.